Well, good morning as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning. Believe it or not, July 1st, year 2024, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi, continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you out there that make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access. And of course, rightfully so, that we should be not only proud but feeling privileged and thankful for that kind of stabilizing factor, emotionally, spiritually, socially, religiously, you name it, on all front, to enhance that feeling of self-regard and stability and some kind of a security, even though sometimes this kind of security is feeling a little funny because we have to be on the alert from all the goodness that's coming our way. So one kind of, I always claim that avalanche of goodness is still, by its own definition, an avalanche. So we should be very wary of not messing too much with an avalanche, even though it can be that we can win the lottery and come up with this kind of uh, losing control and losing ourselves into the discovery of the that which becomes an unlimited available access to us that we don't quite know what to do with. And actually, that would be a good topic to talk about, especially, and of course, tie it to the world of art, the world of creativity, the world of um, uh, uh, confidence building, and constructing while you are instructing a guideline that you know for sure that's going to work for you, even though you're already in a good place to begin with, which I believe that. Um, but there's always room for improvement, and it's never enough when it comes to beefing up the reservoir of tools available and energy available, and also to be lucky enough to have the mood that will govern the fact that you are going to be doing it, will find yourself willing to do it and able to do it and do it on top of all that. Just like I found myself yesterday in my studio, um, I was informing myself of the availability of that moment that happened to be rare, a rare moment in the equation of okay, you can get up this second, because I found myself resting a little bit in the studio, which is something literally unheard of for me. Okay, you can get up now and take advantage of this window of opportunity that will lead you to fruition and conclusion, um, um, long anticipated, and also um, uh, somewhat predictable. Lucky for us, and then of course that indeed, when you go over your notes at the end of the day, you realize that you have prevailed, and that's the key factor here. And um to be proud of that fact, mixed with a substantial amount of level of happiness, and satisfaction, um, and not to be taken lightly. You cannot take it lightly, really. And then I don't know what's going on here, but let's see. I'm going to do this and this. Yeah, here we go. Okay, that's better. So I was looking for a way in to that available space that was required in order to conclude certain issues with the surface that I've been going with back and forth for quite a while, and builds up in frustration, and also informed me that not everything always goes according to how you would expect it or wish for it to go, and that you have to be ready emotionally and technically speaking to give the answers. An interesting thing is that I don't. It's not that I. It's not that I cannot deliver really, and it's not that I cannot, you know, go through it in order to get to where I need to get. It's just that the feeling inside me tells me, I can do without, and if I can do without, I have to find a way to not to get into it to begin with. Time is precious. I don't need to inform you of that fact. Time is precious, especially if you reach a certain age where you say, okay, now I found the breakthrough, but now I find out that I'm an old man. Now I find out that I'm limited. Now I find out that I'm not doing well. Now I find out that I need help taking care of myself. And on the account of that time so precious to be available to paint paintings if you wish to, if they know write poetry if that's what you do. I want to get into the thickness of that declaration, and speak out loud, and and say this is a poem because I placed it in that category, and because I gave it a title, and because I dressed it the way it's dressed, and because I gave it that camouflage that speaks in a language that is inevitably poetic and inevitably yielding to the needs of that which is how to say, maybe the thing that will make you think twice, about your actions, and maybe teach you a lesson or two about what it is that you should kind of approach and yield to, and favor and welcome, and what is it that you should shy away from, and go and brush up on all the understanding of what it really means to understand your trends and your habits and your wheeling and dealing with the details, and allowing yourself to really see a person in front of you that happens to be yourself, and ending up really realizing that you actually like that person, and but then you have to find a way to reverse it and come and make it like your close neighbor, a person that you have access to, an individual that uh, is there for you, regardless, and and take that route to find yourself in place without the need to place yourself in that place that you need to be. I like to actually say to find out that you are in instead of to be, the place that you find out that you are in that happens to be the place that you feel like you need to be in. And so it goes hand in hand, because then you realize that there's a lot of things that you can just let it do its thing. Because by letting it do its thing, you realize that that thing that you let it do, the thing that you let it do, the thing is the thing that really you need to have done, have being done for the sake of something that benefits you. Someone needs to do it. And if you can spare yourself from that and find yourself directly shooting yourself into the center of the action, sparing yourself from all these time consuming preparations, so to speak, which I already mastered the bypassing and the shortcuts to get to a point where, okay, you know what? The question won't be the question won't be, are you going to speak up your mind or not? The question is going to be when are you going to do it? And if you're going to do it, are you sure you're ready to deliver that message? Are you sure that message is really solid enough to be, um, um, what's the word, um, dealt with in a way that is a serving that specific purpose, not the purpose, the specific purpose, because you know that because you know that um, because you know that you're better off prevailing than finding yourself waiting and dealing with doubts and thought and what if and how come and all of that, which was nice in the early stages when we had to find ourselves giving, asking the questions and giving the answers at the same time, and and indeed we do find ourselves in spots where we ask ourselves, how do we get to how do we get to this moment, to this place, to this feeling, uh, because you want to be able to kind of pick and choose, and even though it sounds weird, because we really realize that we really have to kind of, it's a package deal, you cannot spare yourself from something just because you feel like you don't want to deal with it, because at some point down the road you're going to have to pay for it. But going back to music and poetry, all these beautiful, delicious things that make our society coherent and promising and civil, and that we don't have to let that animal come out of us in order to make any kind of a point. I saw this show about the Second World War and about this whole period of 1933 to 1945. Not that I haven't read enough or watched enough documentaries, but this was a nice, informing, rewarding Netflix series. Um, and then you think to yourself, one man, you know, an entire nation, an entire world couldn't get rid of one man. In this case, it was Hitler or Stalin or whatever. That caused so much pain and so many deaths. 60 million people. Oh my God. I'm like, still have the remnants of lack of sleep last night. 60 million people. 60 million people died. What is the battlefield or concentration camps? We know it's all kind of under the same title of battlefield. But how come they couldn't get rid of him? And then the question to be asked is who's there behind the scenes that we were better off not encountering and better off going through that insanity of 12 years, rather than thinking that if we were to do or not to do certain things, then it would, we were better off, but we don't know. So I guess it happened the way it was supposed to happen. But you sit and wonder, and you know that there will be no enlightenments here, no answers to these wanderings. There will be no answers to these wanderings. Uh, I think I'm going to have Greg Sullivan call us, chat with us. So I'm going to get myself ready here. I'm going to get myself ready. Yes, baby. Let's see what we can do here. Just to mention that we are here on July 1st, year 2024. And it's unbelievable because because I love 4th of July. I really do. I really do. I've been here in this community for 41 years, believe it or not, and I just absolutely adore the 4th of July holiday. It's just something so promising about it. So lightweight, so meaningful though, so celebrative, if it's a word at all. Um, just that that feeling that you want to kind of hold on to gives you a little break. You look around, you see people, vacationing, just letting go, whether they're poor or rich, but they've made it here and they're really enjoying themselves. I usually go to Albert's Landing and some other beaches, like Lazy Point, whatever, and feel the water and surfing or whatever it is the one does. What a joy. What a joy. And just the smell of barbecue and just kind of the lightness of the otherwise burdenous, if it's a word at all, life, demanding and making the bills, making sure you have enough money to survive, to be considered as a viable citizen member of the community, because otherwise you'll be removed from society. We don't want to think about that. But so this holiday makes me feel good about being who I am and where I am with the family that I have and just all these wonderful goodies. And then you look around and you look at your kids and you said, these are my kids. It's like unbelievable. And look, they're so smart, so beautiful. God bless. I must have done something right. Well, I don't know if I can say I must have done something right. Maybe God must have done something right by me to say, you know what? I'll grant you your wishes. I'll grant you your wishes. Here we go. Oh my God. Greg,
Hey, good morning.
good morning. So, don't use any profanities because you're on the air. I warned everyone. I said, watch this guy. He's unpredictable. But you know what? I started the show about 10 minutes ago and you came to my mind and I said, you know what? I miss this guy. He doesn't call me anymore to be on his shows and I missed that. That last encounters that we had was very meaningful to me. And so I was like, yeah, it's time to call him. So I'm glad you made it. How are you making out? How are you doing?
It's fun. I tell you, I'm going to buy your painting, and then I disappear.
No,
It's a little habit I have. I'm going to
we
buy your
we don't
painting
worry
tomorrow.
about that
You
now.
disappear
We don't worry
again.
about that now.
Okay. But I love that painting. And you know something? I was just talking about you.
Uh
I
huh.
with Chris Lacour.
Okay.
And it's funny. I had him on a show, and and he said he had just done your show. I said that Haim beats me all the time. Yeah, it beats me to the fun. But so you guys know each other well, and I realized so you curated his show. Those were all of his paintings that you had in the hallway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's good. I like that guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. He knows what he's doing, and he's young. It's unbelievable how young he is, huh?
You
And
know
that
something? I have no judge of age. I'm such a bad judge of age. How old is he?
he's like 25 or something ridiculous.
That young, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell.
So, and he runs a gallery, and he becoming an established artist, and
Yeah,
the future is rosy. But you know what?
yeah.
I was kind of thinking about the level of sophistication and complexity that you present and introduce, uh, somewhat unknowingly even, it's pretty impressive. Because there is something, because you always claim that I'm like
Great
consistent,
thinker.
yes, and consistent, and so many other things that speak in the name of being able to repeat those great moments, over and over again. And with you, I'm not so sure that you're aware that you have that also in a very magical fashion. because I don't think you think about it as much as I do, but the end result is almost one and the same. Do you follow what I'm trying to describe here?
Well, you know that I don't think of myself too much, in any kind of way. But when I talk to you, I'm always pleased with what you kind of point out, and I appreciate it. I consider you a really good thinker. Me, I just kind of go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and you're always complimenting me on my energy, which is nice. But I'm always fascinated with the things that you are bringing to the table. And when I was talking to Chris, I mentioned you a lot, and I talked about how like you were talking about when you decide, oh, I've got to write a poem. When the time is when you got to write a poem, and about our different arts. I don't know what my art is. I write. I like to write, and I do think that we're in this kind of evolutionary change right now as a species that it's hard for us to even keep up with what's happening to us as a species, and that we're even renaming ourselves. But I'm like fascinated with us guiding ourselves into the place that we want to be, as opposed to it just happening by itself.
What do
You
you
know.
mean renaming ourselves? Can you explain?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, there's we actually have a new name for our species that we were before. That we were Homo erectus. We were the human that stood up and walked around on 2 feet, and then we recognized that at some point we were using our brains. The anthropologists looked back and said, "Look at this animal. It's using its brains. It's thinking, and it's using its brain as a major function." Not just to be reactive and deal with the environment and what it needs to survive, but using its brain to create power, harness power and create mechanisms to help it. So we called ourselves Homo sapien, and then Homo sapien is thinking, sapien, brain, human, Homo. So it's thinking human, and then just not too long ago, and really in the blink of an eye, when you think of humanity and how many billions of years we've been around, but not too long ago, we started recognizing that how we choose to go about thinking about something determines the outcome. Niels Bohr and then Einstein had that battle of is sunlight particles or sunlight waves, and both were able to prove unequivocally that their hypothesis was correct. But how they chose to go about thinking about it or analyzing it, um, is the scientific method. You make an experiment, you look at something, you see if it comes out with the results, then you make the experiment again, then again, and as long as it keeps coming up with the same result, you kind of can figure it out. You kind of got it down. Okay, it's happened the exact same way for 10 times, so this is what we can figure out. But then when these guys started looking and realizing both were looking at things differently, and both were able to unequivocally prove that through the scientific method that their way and what they're thinking was correct. So how can you have that? How can you have two things that are absolutely opposite being correct? So it was really that was
But
really
they're
the
not
spark of it.
opposite in essence, they're opposite in execution
Yes,
or
yes,
in
exactly.
realization, but the contents is one and the same. It's just how you execute that
Yeah,
or
exactly.
implement it.
So yeah. So it was then that we started realizing what we choose to think about. If you're going to choose to think about this, well, guess what your reality is going to be? It's going to be about what you choose to think about, and then the way you choose to think about it is going to determine these outcomes. So, because of that, there's this new understanding of ourselves, totally new understanding of ourselves, that we have a power to create and to manifest ourselves in ways that we hadn't previously thought. We thought we were just here and we had to figure everything out and the way it happens outside of ourselves, not so much that we are actually part of the creation of it.
Yeah, and
So
I'll add to it. So the more difficulty we have to choose spells more choices.
yes, yeah. So
If you think
so
about it,
Yeah. So
When you
so
have a
now
hard
there's a
time
new name
making
for
up
it.
your mind, you have to make up your mind so much more than usual.
Yeah.
In order to get to the point, so you're actually ending up more in the realm of multiple choices than as if you know exactly what you want.
Yeah. Well, so the new name for our species, and it's really being adopted, and it comes out of the Omega Conference, up in Bard College, the theology conference every year, with scientists and physicists and spirituality people all coming together and thinking things through. So they're actually adopting a name, and you can look it up now: Homo sapien sapien. So it's the human that thinks about what they're thinking about and
So
how they're
thinking
thinking about
about the
to
mind of
create.
the mind.
Yes, and how we're creating ourselves and realizing. Be careful how you think,
Yeah.
and choose how you think because you are creating what you're thinking about.
Yes, and
So,
also the mind has a mind of its own.
yeah, doesn't it ever? Right? Doesn't it ever?
Especially when it comes to you and I.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But what
yeah.
about parallel worlds? I don't know if you know much about Kabbalah and
Oh,
the mysticism
I love the
of the
Kabbalah.
creation
Yeah.
period and all the contents combined. It's and the Kabbalah states about if Greg went to the Delhi and made a left and a right in order to get there, there's also the great Greg that went the same route, but when you had to make choices to go left and right, you made right and left. So that means those parallel worlds exist evenly and literally. It's just that you're not aware of that other Greg that took the other route. So these parallel worlds is something that we don't consider, and we're missing out on a lot by not. Of course, won't be able to notice it with our naked eye because it's an impossibility. We have our own limitations. Um, but to think about it, nothing can stop us from doing that. But nobody's getting. I don't think I've ever encountered anyone who wanted to talk about parallel worlds and what it means, or to try and figure things. Start an interesting, deep conversation, even if it gets us nowhere, so to speak. It does. This scenario, this option, does not exist in topics of conversations.
No, I had an incident where and it was like the parallel worlds for me. I was driving on the 405 freeway. I was running my film studios out in L.A. And I was living in Newport Beach at the time. And you're driving up from Hollywood all the way down to Newport Beach. Terrible drive, hours. But it's well, not much worse than going from Manhattan to Montauk on a Friday night. But I'm in traffic and I was driving. And Haim, I swear I had this experience where I was just driving along and it felt like the whole world went kind of gray silver and as if I blacked out for a minute and then came to and just kept driving. I was like, holy smokes, what was that? It was something, it was like I went through some sort of vortex and I had this thought that, oh my God, in the parallel universe right next to me, right next to the one I'm continuing on with now, I got into a car accident and died. But in this universe, in this parallel, I didn't.
Yes,
So, and
that's very interesting. It's almost like it's almost like an artistic stroke.
something that's a good way to describe it. I Yeah.
But
Well, that's
thanks
what I
for
felt like.
sharing. That's interesting. And then, so you actually were you became aware of the other
Yeah.
just momentarily, and in that moment, that you caught what happened in that moment in the other world of yours
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
had to be a part of you that you weren't aware of. So you became aware of it for a couple of seconds or minutes.
Yeah, it was not like a deja vu flash, but it was definitely like everything kind of blacked out for a minute, and then came to again, and then there I was still driving. I was like, whoa, wow, what was that? But you, so here, you, but you are the master of the alternative. So it felt like I was the alternative. I had said, oh no, no, I don't. This isn't my time to go. And that car accident that just happened, I'm going to continue on in the parallel universe where that didn't happen, and where I survived. But
No, you
it
won't.
was it was so, it was
No,
so
you
strong a
should
thing.
replace the word continue with the word remaining.
Yes. Oh, good. Yes. Better. See, you're a great thinker. No. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stay with the alternative where I am remaining, and I
remaining,
remain here.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it even sounds better when you say the word remaining.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what strikes me is that you remember it. So,
It was so vivid.
but you
It
know
was
what
so
it
freaky.
spells. You know what it suggests. The fact that you can sit here and talk to me about that, that means that you tripled, if not quadrupled, your powers in the life that remains here. That you actually, as we speak here, both present. So, and you don't have to be aware of it. You will become aware when you see results of things that you're engaged in. That's what's going to spell that change that you will slowly but surely start to recognize. That's unusual that you can
Well,
talk about it coherently, because usually otherwise it's just a fraction of something that comes and goes, and maybe you think about it when it happens, if you're lucky enough, but it's definitely not remaining in your memory that you can discuss it later on.
yeah.
That's
Well, it was that
interesting.
it was that dramatic to me, and my wanting to explore that and say, what was that I felt like I drove through some sort of vortex, some sort of like, in the film industry, I could probably create a special effect for it. But the fact that like I said, I'm just driving along, and then cars that go stopping in front of me or something, and then
Wait, were you
and then I
driving
kind of
fast or slow? Were you like in traffic,
well,
dragging,
it
stop and
it
go?
was it was it was fast. It was 55 on the
Oh,
highway,
okay,
but
okay.
it was crowded, and then it looked uh like um like everybody might have stopped short in front of me or something, and I was okay with it. But I can't forget that. I was like, and I want to remember it. It's like you want to remember that because that was something. It was some sort of a phenomena
Did
that
it ever happen to you before?
no, no, not that I remember. Not or certainly not that dramatically that I could remember it that well. But I certainly remember that, and it was
Yes.
just too. It was like I just went through some sort of black hole in space or something and came back and I'm okay, and it didn't happen, but it did feel like I could have. It's hard to describe it still, but lost my life. I was like parallel universe. I had this terrible car crash, but this time I didn't, or the where I'm remaining in this parallel where it
It
didn't
can be
happen.
so many scenarios. It can be rejuvenation, it can be cleansing, it can be purifying. Something needed your attention, So
Yeah,
that's how they used. That's what they did in order to get your attention.
yeah,
And for reasons that maybe you don't even want to know why the ultimate power needed your attention. But I won't ask you if you believe in God, but do you believe in a God?
yes. But
Eh,
it's a little different.
Not in relationship to what you just experienced, just in general.
Yeah, I
Because you're saying, you mentioned before, we've been around for billions of years and all this. That's all fiction. Obviously, we don't know nothing. We know that there's a kind of a written testimony, i.e., history written of the last what 5,800 years. And when the people argue that the world, there is evidence that the world is that many billions years old, they neglect the fact that the God or the ultimate power that created all this as a game or whatever, for whatever purpose, created it already that old. You know what I mean? Life did not exist for billions of years in order for us to discover that it's billions of years old. but rather it was put in place already that old. The material, the matter, the air, all the things that we can supposedly test now, or try and make sense of. Um,
I, I don't well, I don't believe, the traditional Michelangelo's top of the Sistine Chapel. God put his finger out on Adam, and he's creating Adam. I don't believe that there is that kind of God. Certainly not in that form. But I do believe, I call my God. What is it that we call our God? I call my God the divine imagination, that power, that energy that creates everything, and that is continuing to create. And I believe, this is kind of controversial. Some people kind of turn their heads sideways, like a cow looks at a locomotive when I tell them this. But I believe that there is no such thing as discovery, and that we are in that moment of creation. And when Einstein said, "I'd love to know the mind of God," I believe that we are part of that moment of creation when all this information comes together, uh, and then comes to almost like a conclusion that we recognize and suddenly manifested as real, like DNA. I don't believe that DNA existed until scientists said, if this is this and that's that, like we are the mind of God. Like if this is happening this way and that happens this way, if we look at this, um, we come to this conclusion, and therefore it manifested itself as DNA.
but what
I,
word? But what word are you going to replace discovery with? Let's see if you can get it. Because I agree with you. There's no such thing as discovery. Uh, because I thought about it a lot, a lot, a lot, and I came out with a word that we don't discover, we recover. So that means it's all we have to dust the surface. It's all kind of a very thin layer of disguise, like some dust, some whatever that we have to dust now and then. That's it. So our role of recovering is not less important than the actual discovery. Discovery meaning creating
re,
something from nothing.
yeah,
That's the discovery.
recovering.
Recover. You
Um,
covered that which is prematurely already, discovered. Because it
mm,
created. You create somebody created it. Somebody described. Do you think that because there's a thing that says, okay, there's the God and there's the God of God. So we if we were to even accept religiously everything, all the stories of the books of books and the Old Testament and the angels and the fathers and the tribes and everything, which I believe in because, otherwise I'll be confused, I don't want to be
yeah.
confused. I want to just hold on to something. And like you said with the imagination, if to realize that we, through our imagination, can put the speed of light to shame if we wanted to only, and to have within us installed powers that are just puts all the power combined of all creation and all that we know that we don't know combined, then obviously there's something to it, and there's something to it that would be foolish to try and argue with and second guess it. So what about the God of God? That's something that we don't want to deal with. We want to deal with the God that is not responsible for its own creation. Be-
Yes, that yeah.
it's only responsible for our creation, but not for the creation of itself. So that makes things somewhat simpler. And when I say simpler, because nothing is simple when you speak of God and creation and infinity and whatever, because it's the here and now of that which has no time and no place. But suddenly we have access to it because we accepted a few facts, and by doing so we bypassed all the complexity of things that will confuse us and therefore rob us of clarity and coherence. That's why I believe that we should eh, concentrate on supposedly the God, which is the power or whatever you want to call it, that's responsible for our creation, for the planets, for all the things that we kind of getting to find out slowly but surely. And we have there's no chance we can get to the reality of the God, of that which created the God that created us and also was responsible for its own creation.
The God of God and the one that was responsible for its own creation.
Yes,
That's
and that's
beautiful.
not
Going
our
back to
God.
that, yeah,
That's not
yeah,
our God. That's the grandfather, and but we don't even want to even utter that possibility that we need to even go there and try and attempt anything when it comes to that. We just let it be, and maybe it will introduce itself like it introduced itself when you were driving and experienced what you experienced. So this is a taste of that, maybe, and maybe you should feel very fortunate because as I said, he might have given you a present, a gift in those moments that you're not yet aware of.
yeah,
Maybe he added another 20 years to your life without you knowing that that's what's happened.
yeah, yep.
And knowing you, I don't think something can kill you so easily. You're pretty
uh,
sturdy. If
well,
I
I've landed on my feet a number of times. I'm kind of like that cat that has 9 lives. It's true,
Yeah,
but
the thing is that if I had to be your angel of sabotage, I would kind of delay the encounter with you. I'd say, okay, let's see if I have other things on the list to do. I'll get to him later. So in that sense, it's so how do we bring that realization of an existence and the reality of God into the daily routine? That's the question of all questions. How do we make it earthy?
Well, so I have a good answer for that. These books come out, and then there was The Secret. Oh, everybody had to pick up that book, The Secret, and the secret to manifestation and your vibration. And it's all about our vibration and recognizing we live in a world that is where how we vibrate and how we are feeling about something creates our vibration, and that helps us create or not create what we want. But we were everybody read The Secret, and then it goes back to when you if you looked at Dale Carnegie and Napoleon Hill wrote that book. He worked for Dale Carnegie, and it was about how where he got to interview all the greatest uh, guys during the Industrial Revolution, Henry Ford, Edison, J.P. Morgan, and one of the things that he asked all of them. He said one of the common threads, and it's written in his book, Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich, which was the precursor to The Secret. And all The Secret talked about was what Dale Carnegie was taught Napoleon Hill. It's just about thinking about something and having absolutely no doubt. Just don't even think about anything else. Don't let any negative thoughts come in. Just know what you want. Think about it and just make it happen. But to not have any other, he said that the secret was to not allow any other thought, no doubts, come in. But going backwards from that, after the book The Secret came out, which really was just a regurgitation of Think and Grow Rich, and what all of these big, very successful people all had in common about their feelings about their concentration on something and giving no allowance for anything else except what they were believing in. That then you actually look and say, well, wait a second. That actually goes back to the Bible in Mark 11:23, where it says, "Look upon this mountain and be cast out in the sea, and have absolutely no doubt in your heart that shall happen, and it shall come to pass." And that was what Jesus was teaching, and Dale Carnegie was a very religious Scotsman, and believed in the Bible. So he was only practicing what it said in the Bible about creation, and that if you think about it and you just think about it with no doubt at all, it will come to pass. So that makes us that creator, and that we're recognizing. It's so funny that all these things are coming to light that have been talked about for so long, but so many people have doubted it, not believed it, or our lives give us so many reasons to question certain things. But if you have no doubt in your mind, you will create what it is that you choose.
And you
We're
know
very
what? You
powerful creators.
Yeah, and you mentioned
So that
Jesus.
part of God.
Yeah, Jesus was greater than the moment.
Oh yeah.
How eh, I always ask myself, how did he shied away from indirectly from his Jewishness? Um, look how interesting it is. He was trying to. He was bothered. But he was a scholar. He was a real scholar. He was a rabbi. He was a scholar. He was a student of one of the greatest rabbis in the history. So he wasn't just a regular person. And it really bothered him to see the people are sinning outside the temple. It really bothered him. It really bothered him. He couldn't just go to sleep and go have his next meal or go about his business and create furniture. So he knew that he had to do something about it. He just couldn't help himself in all this. But what he didn't know that he won't have control over the repercussions of his actions, because that will remain in the hands of people when he's not going to be around any longer. So he
Mm.
won't have control over, like corrections or telling people, no, 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 you're wrong. You misinterpreted. You misunderstood me. Let's go back again. Let me, you know what I mean? He was greater than the moment. And by saying that, he was greater than his entire surrounding at that given time. And people definitely could not digest who this man is there in front of him because they didn't have the tools.
Mm.
And he wasn't quite ready to give them a crash course, you know what I mean? Because he knew that it's not the way it works. You can't
Yeah.
just take all this information, all this divineness, and say, let's have lunch and talk about it. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
doesn't. But he was hoping. But what you see now today is a diluted version of that greatness, unfortunately. Because if it wasn't, then Christianity will be Judaism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It won't be separated from its core, from its base, from its source, because it came from the source. You can't end up with something other than the source when you come from the source. And the way to test it is to go to the source and compare it with the source. And if it's one and the same, then you know you're doing just fine. You don't have to make any adjustments. You know that you can do no wrong. There's a very there's a very simple blood test to tell us about how well we're doing, if at all, and how accurate the system is working and all this. But then again, second guessing that kind of um, reality that's responsible for our own creation, just because. Well, what I'm trying to say is this: God, the superpower, did not prevent us from doing certain things that might have been interpreted as a challenge to it. Meaning, let's just say I can fly now 10,000 billion times faster than the speed of light because my imagination allows me to. And let's just say that 10,000 billion light years away from here is somewhat closer to that power than where I am now. But it's the closest that I can get. And I'll take a highlighter and I highlight it. And this will be my access to infinity. So when I
Mm.
travel there, it will be actually landing on the crown of that God and sliding through the crown to the shoulder all the way to the pocket of the jacket of God, going through the contents of what God has in his own pocket, and playing around my game, my human game there. And as uh, just as I showed up in a peculiar, magical, out of this world, unexplainable fashion, that's how I'm going to disappear and go back to where I was, like in the middle of making breakfast, or taking a test, or taking a walk, or taking a bath, or sleeping. So why? So we need to ask ourselves, well, how come I'm able to do that, and how come nothing stops me from doing that in my mind? And you and I know already that if you can do it in your mind, that means it's real,
That's
even
right.
if you cannot do it physically. So what is the superpower trying to communicate with us? that indeed when it says, I created you from as a part of my own flesh, I took a little bit of my flesh and I created you. That means I took an oath by doing that, that I cannot annihilate you. I cannot do away with you. Do you understand? It's like he's giving us so much by this little suggestion. I took a part of myself and created you from this part. So if I do any harm to you, I'm actually harming
For
myself.
myself, yeah.
So it's just simple math. And you think Einstein didn't realize it? He realized it, but he didn't want to talk about it. You know why? Because it would belittle him completely. It will
Yeah.
make him instantly irrelevant. Like, who am I? So he said, let me keep quiet and everybody will think that I'm so great because they don't know better. That's all there is to it.
why, why give it away?
Why give it away? Exactly. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
they equal this and that. Fine, because we're so limited, we accept it with love, and why not? He's an original, and he has some explanations, but in the face of that complexity, he will be like, it would be incredible if he will, the dust of his reality will remain. Nothing. This nothingness is 10,000 times stronger than everythingness of his. I don't know. I'm just
I it's so. But by the way, so you you asked me, and I said I call God the divine imagination that I think we're all part of. But you, um, uh, so how do you define your God? I like the thought of the God of God. By the way, the Tao. This is something I got out of that Omega conference going up there in Bard Theology College. It's the God of God in the Tao, the ancient, one of the oldest in philosophies. But I think it's page one. It says that the Tao, the uh, the the Tao, the truth that can be told, it can't be told. That you can't know. It's really what you just said. The Tao number one says that the real God of the God um, can't be known, and you can't even bother thinking about it. But so you recognize that we can't even really, it'd be impossible to really understand and know the God of our God. But so how do you define it? What do you think? You have a name for it?
um well um I I the God is my acknowledgement of the existence of that complexity. That's my
Yeah.
God. Acknowledging this complexity, which embedded within it is sophistication and a depth that is undeniable. Like when I think of the Old Testament, I said there's just no way in hell that something ordinary wrote this, even though it sounds like just very basic, adamant, trivial stories, you know. But then when you realize that every aspect of it, you know that they say King Solomon had 3,000 interpretations for every little tiny thing.
Oh yeah.
Uh, every little tiny thing in existence, he had 3,000 interpretations. You know how many we know today? Like uh, uh, maybe three or four, five,
Mm,
maybe seven. Oh, just like a chess player, you know. If you can think 8 moves ahead, nobody can beat you.
mm,
8. I don't think you need more than that. If you think 3 or 4 ahead, look how little, how basic. You'll be
yeah.
considered as a strong player. So, but what does that tell us? It tells us that the memory is there, the capability of the memory is there, but the actual effectiveness of it, the actual let's prove it on the surface, is zero almost. It's something that we put to sleep and never woke up since then.
Mm,
But just imagine Yeah, there was an entity once that had 3,000 interpretations to every
Wow,
aspect of everything that's written, whether metaphorically, whether the images, whether the language, whether it's the grammar, whether it's the vowels, whether every little tiny thing, 3,000 interpretations.
incredible.
And also, and then, yeah, if you want to argue and all this, you can do it. That's beauty also. That's another sign of strength, that the ultimate power said, I'm going to allow you to do whatever you want. Think as you wish. You can dismiss me. You can dismiss everything. You can suggest and offer your own interpretation. For example, I had a gathering with some really religious, it was like maybe a decade ago in Jerusalem, one of the parties that I attended to, a religious party. And so suddenly talked to them about, when God created Adam, he did not release him directly to the garden. He was so amazed by his creation and so proud of this prototype that he spent time with him, and it's called the ancient dialogue. He had an ancient dialogue with Adam and therefore delayed its introduction to the garden, meaning to start the world, to start life as we know it. So now every time we have like our ears ringing and all that, that's like coming. This is coming from that ancient dialogue that God had with Adam before he released. And that was kind of unplanned, only because he realized what a magnificent creature I created. He also had a hard time letting it go. It's like your baby. It's like this perfection. I'd like to spend more time with it. So then they looked at me and said, that sounds very fascinating, but what's the source for it? Because religious people, they need to know what's the source for this information. And I told them, there's no source. I just came to my mind. So they looked at me in shock and they said, no, 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 you cannot do that. I mean, they were nice, but you cannot do that. I said, well, obviously I can. I just did it. And you said it was fascinating, didn't you? But you see, I can understand them very much as I want them to understand me. They cannot understand me as much as they want me to understand them. I can, because I didn't accept upon myself all these aspects that kind of is demanded of you once you accept religion into your life. That's pretty much it. But anyway, let me just mention that Greg Sullivan is here with us, and we have 5 more minutes. But believe it or not, we devoured 45 minutes. On July 1st, you believe it's July 1st, Greg?
Oh God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
And
July
and
first.
and you know what? Before I forget, I want to extend another $500 reduction of the price.
Hey, as long as I don't get back to you, I'm making money.
No, officially, I'm reducing another $500 from the painting,
I love that painting so much. I love that painting so
and
much.
you can
And I
still change your mind. So don't worry about it.
no, no, thank you. You're very gracious.
No,
You're
really,
very
I'm
gracious.
making it official. Another $500 deduct. So
Well, you
before you
got
know it, I'm gonna owe you money.
it.
I'll take you
Oh,
to
hi, you're
lunch
funny.
and give you the painting.
As long as I keep hanging out, pretty soon I'll own it. And you'll have to be paying me.
Yeah, I know. Just say, stall it as much as you can. Oh my
I
God.
love that. I love it so much when I see the podcast when I do it and I have that in the background. It just I look at it and I scroll through like if I go to LTV's site, and you look through the thing, and then there's then the mine with your painting on it. It just like pops out at you. Just I love it. It's bright. It's
Yeah,
cheerful.
yeah, and
It's
it's one of the early ones, so it was some
yeah.
level of enthusiasm involved
So
in making it and all this.
So
But
so and so okay, you only got 5 minutes, so it's counting down. Every time I start going with you, the juices start flowing. You're saying I got 15 things I want to talk about. I mean, I wanted to go back to the 3,000 interpretations, and it's like, wait a second, is each interpretation its own parallel universe? But we went past that already. That was 3 conversations ago. But the and then
Actually, we have 1 minute. Wait, I made a mistake. So we're like, yeah, let me
okay.
see what's going on here. Yes, because the 9 looks like 0 there.
Well, so I
So
have to let you go.
we
You
actually we
just got
have
me into this.
yeah, listen, don't hang up because I want to talk to you after. But the thing
Okay,
is, we can continue this conversation when you invite me to your show next time when you have like
deal.
back to
Yeah,
back
we
two
wanted to do
shows
it the
or
last time,
things of this
and
nature. But I
yeah,
wanted to really thank you. Let me see. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to thank you for being a friend and being that kind of energy that you carry that is so important and shouldn't be taken for granted. And then, of course, just for being who you are and being a friend and being a commodity here at LTV. And other than that, we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this morning of July 1st, Monday morning, year 2024 here with the Halolo Show. And hold on 1 second. Keep up the good spirits. We'll talk to you soon. We'll see you, of course, tomorrow.
love you, Haim.